I finally get to try out my new toy. I'm going to can up some sausage and even share a quick recipe. Let's go. Hey guys, it's Jara with Wicked Prepared. Welcome back to our channel. If it's your first time here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell. We'd love to have you. Today I'm going to be doing some canning. You know I love to save money, and one of my favorite ways to save money on meats is to browse around the store looking for those yellow clearance stickers at Walmart. So I found some of these Italian sausages on markdown. They're 3-pound packages for $7.86 a piece, so that was a pretty good deal. I don't like to pay more than $3 a pound for sausage. So that was definitely under $3 a pound, so I was just going to grab a couple because we usually tend to cook these up and cook up some peppers and onions and just have them as a low-carb meal. But I also had been thinking lately that I would like to can some Italian sausage. And I really wanted to can the bulk sausage, but these are links, but that's okay because we can just slit them open and cook the meat up just like bulk sausage meat. Now, I know that canning is not everyone's cup of tea, but before you change the channel, go ahead and hear me out on this. If you are a prepper or if you are interested in prepping, and I imagine if you're watching our channel, you're probably interested in something somewhere along that spectrum. Canning is a very important skill to have for prepping. It's a way to preserve your food when there is no electric grid available. You can pressure can and water bath can without electricity. Imagine a scenario where the power goes out and you are aware that the power will not be coming back on for several days or even several weeks. You've got a freezer full of meat that's thawing and it's going to be all lost. What can you do to save that? If you don't have a generator, or if your generator runs out of fuel and you're not able to get more, you could can that meat and that would preserve the meat without electricity. Now imagine that we are in a long-term grid down scenario, whatever it may be. No matter how much food and supplies you store, it will run out eventually. And you're going to have to grow your own food and hunt your own food and gather your own food. Now, how are you going to preserve that food? If you grow a garden all year long and you get the bulk of your harvest in 1 to 2 months at the end of the summer, if you hunt and kill a deer, an elk, a moose, or another large animal that has much more meat than you can eat in a couple of days, one of the best ways that you can preserve your meat and your vegetables without electricity is with canning. Prepping is more than just stockpiling food and supplies. You also have to stockpile knowledge and skills. They say the more skills you have, the less things you need. Some of the skills that are most important, like gardening and canning, aren't just going to come naturally. They take practice. So you need to start practicing those skills before you need them. But today I'm not using an off-grid method of canning. I'm using my brand new toy, my beautiful new Nesco Electric Pressure Canner. So we're going to start by cooking up the sausage meat. I've got my big pot here. Now each one of these packages was 3 pounds, and my Nesco Electric Canner will hold 5 pints, and I can get about a pound in each pint. So I'm going to cook up, for now, 2 of these packages. So we're just going to get the sausages out and really just slit the casing open, and you can just peel the casing right off and drop the sausage meat into the pan. You can also, sometimes I just take it and squeeze it in the middle and push the meat out either end, but that way is just a little bit messier, so, and it's a little slippery if you do that. But you can do it that way. I think it works a little bit better to use the knife and cut open the casing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get both of these packs of sausages out of their casings and into the pan. And then I will bring you back and we can cook it up. So now we've got our sausage in our pot, and I'm going to put this burner on pretty high. And because we've taken the casings off of this sausage, it's going to break up pretty quickly as it cooks with the meat masher. I love my meat masher for all kinds of ground meat. We use this all the time. She's really starting to sizzle now. You know, my kids even love to help cook the ground meat if they get to use the meat masher. It's one of their favorite things to do in the kitchen. So this is looking pretty good. I think it's pretty much done. It doesn't matter if there's any slightly undercooked spots because they will be pressure canned long enough to completely cook anything. So we're going to get ready to put this in our jars. So now that this sausage is all cooked, we're getting ready to put it in the jars. Now, one thing I did not do is I did not drain any of the liquid out of this sausage. You probably can't see it, but there's all kinds of good liquid in here. Now, the reason that I did not drain it is because what I mostly had in mind for this sausage was a lentil soup that I make that uses Italian sausage. And when I make that soup, I do not drain the liquid. I cook the sausage, I leave all the liquid in, the fat, the juice that comes out of the sausage, because it adds so much flavor into that soup that I don't even have to add any broth or bouillon. I just use canned tomatoes and water, and it has plenty of flavor. And I was watching a video from Rose Red Homestead that someone suggested to me, and she did her meals in a bag, which was kind of reminded me of the way that I do my camping meals, with everything you need all together in one bag. And she had a beef lentil soup that she used a can of canned beef, and I thought, hey, I could do that with my lentil soup with the sausage if I get some in a can. So I'm going to leave all that good juice in there, and then if I need any extra liquid, I'm going to use this tomato bouillon. I thought long and hard about what kind of bouillon to add into this if I need any. I thought of beef or chicken. I was going to do chicken. This tomato bouillon is like a chicken with tomato, so I thought that would be good because, like I said, the lentil soup has a tomato element in it, and so anything else that we would use the sausage in would probably be like an Italian dish, which would have tomato, and then we would probably drain the broth out anyways if we were going to be making spaghetti or a baked ziti or anything like that with this. So I'm going to try to get as much of this juice into the jars as I can. I've got wide mouth pints here, which should hold about a pound of meat. These are new jars, but I did go ahead and check the rims, check the jars over, make sure they look good, make sure there's no imperfections that might cause them to not seal properly. Got my favorite canning funnel here. I love that it gives you the headspace right on the little collar here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill these, and we want to leave about 1 inch of headspace in these jars. So now I'm just scooping it up with as much of the broth and the juices as I can get in it, and then if I have any left over in the bottom when I'm done, I will divide it among the jars. That looks about right. When we put some broth in there, that will be probably good on the headspace. Maybe a tiny bit more. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these jars filled, and then we'll bring you back. So now we've got all the sausage in the jars, and the next thing we're going to do is fill them with broth. So I've mixed up 4 cups of the tomato broth that I showed you, and it might be more than we need. But let's see, because each of these is actually filled already with about half full with the juices from the sausage. So that looks pretty good. We're going to have to debubble that. And let's get the rest of these jars filled first. Okay, so now that we've got these all filled, we're just going to debubble them, stick our little tool down around the edges, and sort of push in towards the center so that any bubbles within the meat will be released. After you debubble, you sometimes have to add a little more broth, depending on how much space you actually freed up down there. So if there's an air bubble, obviously, and that gets put up to the top, the liquid will go in and fill that space. Okay, I think we're looking good on headspace and debubbling, so now we're just going to take some white vinegar and a little piece of paper towel and wipe the rims of these jars, because I was being pretty messy when I was filling them up, and we want to make sure there's no oils, broth, anything left over on the rims of these jars that might keep them from sealing. So we're just going to wipe all the jar rims. I just bought 2 more sets, I believe, of these little Pyrex dishes. I use them so much. I love them. We use them for all sorts of things. Yeah, now that we've got all the rims clean, we are just going to put our lids on. And now for this beautiful canner. This is my new toy that I'm so excited to have and get to try out. A lot of people, I think, gravitate towards these electric canners because they're scared of pressure canning and they want the canner to make it easy for them. But I really feel like you should really learn the basics of pressure canning in a regular stovetop canner before you try to use an electric canner. Some people also like the fact that it's a little more hands-off. It doesn't need quite as much babysitting as a stovetop canner. And what I liked about it is that it does smaller batches. Now I know that seems like it could be a bad thing, and sometimes you want to do larger batches, but quite often I'm doing small batches of things and I have just a few jars and I end up finding ways to fill space in my canner. So this is the Nesco Electric Canner. That's locked, unlocked, open it up. The lid is attached unless you take it off. It's got a non-stick coating in this pan, in this inner pan. And it actually can do a lot of the things. It reminds me very much of my Instant Pot. It seems just like the Instant Pot. I can't can in my Instant Pot. There's only one, I think it's only one model of Instant Pot that you can actually can, and mine is not it. But this can do a lot of the same things that the Instant Pot does. It can do slow cook, pressure cook, brown. Then, of course, you've got the pressure canning, low and high, and a water bath or steam canning. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. And it is ready to go. Now, I, of course, have my instruction manual here because this is my first time using this canner, so we're going to have to figure this out. Food preservation, pressure canning, high and low. Alright, so we are going to put the filled jars on the rack in the inner pot. So let me go ahead and get the rack. This is the canning rack. It comes with two racks. It has a canning rack and a steaming rack that it said can be used to stack a second layer of jars if you were going to do 2 layers, but you'd have to have pretty small jars to be able to do 2 layers in this, I think. So now that we've got the rack in, we're going to place our jars in, and I believe this will hold 5 pints. I think it holds 5 pints and 4 quarts, which is a little bit smaller than what my small Presto stovetop canner will hold. And for me, that's actually a good thing, because sometimes I might actually want to can a little bit less. So there we go. I've got my 5 jars in there. And next, it wants me to add 8 cups of hot water. So here I've got my 8 cups of hot tap water. Alright, so I've got my 8 cups of water inside the canner. Now, I tried not to get any water on the tops of the jars, but it was kind of difficult. I probably could have done that a little bit differently. And then it says to attach, close the lid and close and lock the lid. So close, lock. And attach the proper pressure limiting valve to the lid. Now mine already has the proper pressure limited valve on the lid. This one came right on the machine, that black one, and that is for if you live below 1,000-foot altitude. It also comes with this green valve, which is 15 pounds per square inch if you live above 1,000 feet. The black one is 10 pounds per square inch. So now it says that we want to select high, because we want to do high pressure canning, and press the time button to the required processing time. So we want 75 minutes because we are canning pints of meat. Set the pressure limiting valve to exhaust. So, exhaust. So it's on exhaust. Yep, there it goes. It says the digital dial chase will begin to rotate, and this will continue until the correct internal temperature is reached, which can take up to 30 minutes. Steam will begin venting through the pressure limiting valve. This is normal. Once the pressure canner reaches the correct internal temperature, the canner will beep once, and the control panel will read E10. The preset E10 code means E for exhaust and 10 equals the number of minutes that will count down. So that's the same thing that you would do if you're canning with a stovetop canner. Once you've got the steam coming out the valve, you need to let it vent for 10 minutes. So this is basically going to do that same thing. Okay, so just like they said, it did get a little bit of steam. You probably can't see that in the video, but a little bit of steam is coming out the top. It beeped and it's reading E10. So it's going to vent for 10 minutes. And then, after it's vented for 10 minutes, it's going to beep again when it gets to E0. Once the control panel shows a blinking E0, it will beep once. At this time, the pressure limiting valve must be set to airtight. Once it resumes, the control panel will beep again, and the required process time entered earlier will start to count down. So we're going to wait for this E10 to count all the way down to 0, and then it's going to beep to tell us it needs the next step. So this is basically just like what you do when you're using a stovetop canner. Once it comes up to pressure and the steam starts to vent, you're going to vent it for 10 minutes before you put on your weight. So it's the same thing that we're doing with this. Okay, so the countdown is just about over. It's on its last minute of counting down. All right, there we go. Now we need to set the pressure limiting valve, which is right up here, to airtight. So we're going to just do that. There we go. All right, so now it does not say that we need to do anything else. I think once it brings itself up to pressure, it will start the countdown on its own, from what it sounds like in the manual. All right, so there we go. It just beeped and it started its countdown for 75 minutes. It is hissing and putting off a bit of steam up here. So what I'd like to do now while the canner's going is show you how to make the lentil soup that inspired me to can the sausage. So what I've done to start with here is just browned up 1 pound of those sausages, which incidentally 4 sausages equaled 1 pound. I guess that makes sense. Now, like I said before, I did not drain out any of the liquid or fat that came off of this meat. I'm just going to leave it in there, and it'll add a whole lot of flavor to this soup. Now, if it browns a little bit on the bottom of the pan, don't worry about that. That will scrape right up when we add all the rest of the liquid ingredients, and that will also add a whole bunch of flavor to the soup. The other ingredients I have here are some sliced carrots. This is about 4 medium to large sized carrots, peeled and sliced. I've got 2 cans of Italian-style diced tomatoes, 2 cups of lentils. That's about 1 pound. My bag was larger than 1 pound, so I measured them out. And then back here I've got, if you remember, I had that broth left over from canning the sausage. Now usually I wouldn't use bouillon or broth because the meat and the tomatoes give it plenty of flavor for our taste. But because I had that broth left over, I figured I'd go ahead and use it. It was probably about 2 cups, so I've just filled that 4-cup measure back up with water to equal 4 cups, and I'm going to end up using 8 cups of liquid. So I'll add the 4 cups with the broth, and then I will add an additional 4 cups after that. Okay, so into this pot, I'm going to go ahead and add our 2 cans of tomatoes, Italian-style diced tomatoes. I'm going to add our lentils. I'm going to add the carrots. And then I'm going to go ahead and add our liquid. So I've got the first 4 cups of water, which had the leftover tomato broth. Then I'm just adding an additional 4 cups, so 8 cups of liquid all together. And this makes a pretty big pot of soup. Now, of course, you don't have to do this exactly like I do. I have never written this recipe down. My mother taught me to make this. It was something she came up with, I think, to copy a soup that she had at an Italian restaurant, Carrabba's, I believe. So if you want less carrots, go ahead and put less carrots. If you want to add onions, celery, whatever you want. You make this your own. You can use spicy Italian sausage if you'd rather. I sometimes do that, but the mild was what I found on sale. Not to mention we have a few kids who don't really care for spicy. But who am I kidding? The kids that won't eat spicy probably won't touch the lentil soup. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up to a simmer, and then we are going to simmer it until the lentils and carrots are soft and the soup is thickened up. So now we've got it up to a pretty good boil. So what I'm going to end up doing is turning it down to a simmer, and I'm going to put the lid on but cracked and just let it simmer away till it's all done. Now look at this, guys. We have got soup. I simmered this for probably half an hour, maybe just a little bit more. The lentils are tender, the carrots are tender. And I gotta tell you, it doesn't look like much. This is a very simple dish, but it is so delicious. It has so much flavor. It really does. And you know what? It's really inexpensive. Lentils are dirt cheap. Carrots are dirt cheap. Canned tomatoes are dirt cheap. Literally 4 ingredients. And you have a warm, hearty soup. This is great on a winter day. Serve this with some bread, and you've got a really filling, soul-warming meal. And you could make this from completely shelf-stable ingredients. You've got the sausage that you canned up. You could use canned carrots. You could use dehydrated carrots. You've got the canned tomatoes. Literally everything you need could be shelf-stable for this meal. And there we go, time's up. So now the instructions say to unplug the unit and let it set and cool down and come down to pressure for 1 hour before attempting to open. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, guys, so it's been about an hour since the canner was done. So we should be able to open it and get our jars out. I've already heard at least one ping from inside. So we're gonna turn that to open. Lift it up, watch out for the hot steam. See if we can get, they're in there a little tight, so it is kind of hard. Because of how tight they are in there, I can't even get my tongs around them. So I'm just going to use a cloth to grab, lift them straight up and down here. You can see that still bubbling away just like it would be in the stovetop canner. So there we have 5 beautiful pints of canned Italian sausage meat from our Nesco Electric Pressure Canner. So what did I think of the Nesco Electric Pressure Canner? Well, it's not completely hands-off, set it and forget it, but it's going to get a thumbs up from me. I know I've only used it once, but so far I really like it. I think I was really psyching myself out about setting it up and using it. It really wasn't that bad, and it does take away some of the constant, babysitting of the temperature and the pressure that you have to do with the stovetop canner. And like I said, sometimes I just need to do smaller batches, so this is going to be great for me. I won't use it all the time, but it's going to have its time and place in the kitchen. So guys, I'm pretty happy about what we got done tonight. I finally got to try out my new electric pressure canner and let you guys know what I thought of that. And now we have 5 pints of canned Italian sausage to add to the pantry. Shelf-stable meat. I love canning as a way to preserve meat so that I can take advantage of sale prices without taking up valuable space in the freezer and without worrying about losing it if the power should go out. So don't overlook canning as an important skill to add to your prepper repertoire. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.